trying to take my life twice. And I failed at that. Somebody give me the opportunity to make some money driving a car, don't ask no questions. I ended up getting caught and they sentenced me to 12 years in the prison. And that risk almost killed me. D. Ray Davis gave me an ultimatum when I got out of prison. And he goes, "You want to be a singer, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Don't come home unless you have a song." I'm like, how did I get myself here? I just went dark. I was depressed. I was stressed out. So I started living in my car. And then finally the tears welled up inside of me. And I just said, okay, I'm tired of fighting. I don't want to fight anymore. I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. I want to be surrounded by nothing but positive people. I just want to inspire people and I want to make a bunch of money, but I want the money to represent something that I passionately believe in, that I would do for free. Just show me a sign. Just show me a sign. Just show me a sign. A week later, some homeless person asked me for money. I said, "You have more money than me." And they said, "Change your mindset, change your life." Maybe I should stop saying, "Can it get any worse?" And I started asking myself different questions. Maybe I can change something about me. All of a sudden, I just started doing the opposite of everything I wouldn't normally do. 2.5 years later, I was earning $115,000 a month.
What is that like living in your car? Where were you going to the bathroom? Where were you parking at night? It's interesting. You and I actually ended up in New York around the same time. We were both modeling. I was modeling for, I was with DNA. I was with Boss for a little period of time. I was with Ford for a period of time. You were with Wilhelmina and Ford. Talk about how you ended up in New York. What was the circumstance that brought you?
So I started modeling in LA and I was with Wilhelmina for print. I mean, I was with Ford for runway and Wilhelmina for print because Ford had like the best runway in America. And so I, was booking all kind of stuff, all kind of music videos, L'Oreal hair commercial, Gap, Old Navy, doing Tommy Hilfiger stuff. And I was booking a lot of stuff. And then first time I went to New York, they turned me down. Next time I went to New York, I had a catalog full of all of the campaigns that nobody on their walls had. So I had more work than a lot of their that I went there. They were like, "We'd love to represent you," and everything. So that's why I was in New York, because I really wanted bigger jobs. And I wanted to hit that New York market. So that's why I originally went to New York, and how I got to New York. Cause I was first when I was with Major in New York, me and Channing Tatum started together, and, we were super connected boys. Me, Channing, and this boy named Lucas, were all like top models that were on the come up. Me and Channing did Sean John fashion show together, Fashion Farm and stuff like that. And, that's how I hit the New York market. But then again, there's not a lot of money coming in when you're trying to like really work that market. They just, they're trying to get the casting directors to see your face and you're going out in a specific season. And me being in New York, I was just like, man, I want that big life. I want to drive nice cars. And that's something I always wanted. And so, when the opportunity presented, and it's so wild how it presented. I was at a fashion party in New York. Johnny something, whoever the photographer is, I forgot it, Johnny Hernandez, big time celebrity photographer. He was like, "I want to get you a picture with Miss," her name was Sonia Rowland. And then I took pictures with her and we just hit it off. She ended up being my girlfriend, and went out to France to go visit her. And she was out of town a lot because she was like Miss France 2001 or 2002 or 2000, one of those. But she was shooting movies, everything. She went out of town. I went to a party. I saw somebody from LA that I knew. I knew they were good people, the people that were up to good. However, it was a familiar face in an unfamiliar place.
Mm.
And when you just see that, your senses just raise up. And so we're speaking the same language. And then that's when the opportunity to, I'd say, drive luxury vehicles from one country to another for a large sum of money, or at least that's what I thought, presented itself. I took it.
Was it a random stop or were they stopping everybody? You just the wrong place, wrong time type of thing when they stopped you?
You know, I think I was set up
Mm.
because what I later learned, this was later on, like 2 years in,
Mhm.
is that whenever somebody gets busted with drugs, they all come over from all of the posts to back that person. So if they all come over, it leaves the other portals open for cars to just drive through.
Mhm.
And since, the reason why I got out, because after they tested the drugs, they retested them. It was an extensive search. 85% of those drugs were fake.
Wow. So it wasn't 6.2 kilos of heroin. It was like 1 kilo of heroin. A bunch of
So they tested the drugs 3 times. But after 2.5 years, it's so interesting. I felt more free in prison than I did when I was not in prison because I was doing everything that I'd forgotten that I loved: drawing, running, motivating people, just visual arts and things like that. And I started doing all that and I just felt free. I was like, man, I stopped doing all of this. These are things that made me happy when I was a little kid: running, motivating people, like all the stuff that we talked about when I was a little kid. Well, when I felt the most free, very interesting how they called me in the office and they said, Jones. And I was like, this reminds me of when I was a little kid. And by the way, I was reading the Bible heavily. They
You read
called,
it like 8 times, right?
yeah. And I just kept over and over and over. And it just it felt like it was a part of me.
Mhm.
It is so funny because they called me into the office and they said we retested the drugs and it didn't make sense. I thought I was getting in trouble. Didn't make sense why they retested drugs. And they said 85% of it was fake. It was either 85 or 90. It was a high number. Uh, so I might be paraphrasing. And for the amount that was real, you've already done the time. You're free to go home.
He must have been thinking, "Holy shit, this Bible stuff really,
No,
really
I didn't. I
works."
didn't. I wasn't aware. You can't. I wasn't aware. You can't see the picture while you're in the frame. It wasn't until later, until I connected the dots looking backwards. I'm like, oh, there's a formula here. When I have a great relationship with God, when I'm doing the stuff that I love and I'm in my word, something magical happens every single time. And I have so many examples of it. And it even happened way away in Europe. I wasn't supposed to get out till 2012. I went in 2002, I mean 2001. So I felt free. Jones, you're free to go.
And did you start reading The Power of Positive Thinking in prison, or was that
Oh, I
later?
read it. I read it when I was 18. And a lady, a fashion show coordinator named Shannon Davidson, she had gave me that book for my 18th birthday, and I thought it was the stupidest thing. One, I used to have a speaking impediment, and so I never read books. I never read books, and I was also in special education classes in high school. So thinking I'm stupid, talking like this, I had an issue with people who spoke eloquently with big words and spoke with passion, kind of like I'm doing right now.
Mhm.
I don't use really big eloquent words. I just talk how I talk. But when people would talk like that, I would clam up in a shell because it was such a deep insecurity for me. And so I originally used The Power of Positive Thinking, that book, when I was 18 to over enunciate every word that was in the book, but I didn't read the book for the message that was in the book. So I was like, the other day, I was forgiving my family. So I just started reading it out loud and over enunciating. By the time I was done reading that book, I was talking like this. I was like, oh my God. So I trained myself how to speak by actually reading a book, because I never read a book during really high school because I cheated my way through high school. And so that was the first complete book I ever read in my entire life. Fortunately for me, it was a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. So just by reading the words and uttering the words, all of these really cool things was happening in my life, like the modeling stuff, like the acting stuff, like the attracting certain women into my life that I was like, oh my God, this is an A-list singer. This is an A-list rapper. Why does she like me? And all these things were happening while I was reading this stuff.
Hey, so a lot of you all have been reaching out with your guest suggestions. And look, I appreciate it. I do. And to help make it easier for those guests to say yes to my invitation, I need you to subscribe to this channel. Just hit the subscribe button below, and that's literally the best way to help me get you that guest on my podcast. All right. Thank you so much for helping out, and back to the show.
Speaking of which, you attracted a music deal, some kind of like $500,000 deal with Ludacris.
That was when I got out of prison.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? How'd you meet Ludacris?
Well, I call him my brother, but he's a really good friend of mine. His name is D-Ray Davis. He's a comedian.
Yeah, comedian. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. He hosts the Improv every Monday night for like the last 14 years. And any celebrity that comes, any black celebrity that comes in town, any rapper, any sports star that is in town, they always come to his Monday uh, improv. Well, D-Ray gave me an ultimatum when I got out of prison. And I wrote all these songs while I was in prison. And I said I was going to get a record deal and I'm going to record some songs. I'm going to make music for the first time in my life. So when I got out, he said, I'll give you a free place to stay. I'll buy you clothes and I'll drive you wherever you want to go. And he goes, you want to be a singer, right? And I said, yeah. He said, don't come home unless you have a song. I didn't know a producer. I had no money. Don't come home unless you have a song. That's why I got introduced to MySpace. So I got on MySpace and then I just started messaging people. I'm a singer. All I had was shirtless pictures and no demo. And then somebody named John Henry let me go to his studio. I recorded a song called Breathe It In. And then I took that one song, put it on MySpace, and I reapproached every single person I hit up. Oh, I have a song. But because I had a song, then they saw what I was capable of. Now I was just in the studio. 30 days, I had 28 songs. And when I was done with that, it just so happened that Ludacris happened to be in town, came to the improv. Now D-Ray was the host, so he can put anybody on stage that he wants. Instead of him putting himself on stage, he gave me his time and put me on stage, and I rocked the house. And then Ludacris looked over at D-Ray. He was like, this is his music? Like, yeah. He was like, does he have more? 28 songs that I recorded in the last 30 days, gave to him. Next thing you know, I'm having a meeting up at Def Jam with Luda and the CEOs of president at Def Jam.
Kevin Lyle and those guys.
No, it was before they were president. It was,
Okay.
who was the guy that used to be on,
Lior.
no, the black guy with the glasses,
Oh, what's his name? He passed, didn't he?
I believe.
Andre Harrell.
No, 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 not Andre. I know who Andre Harrell is.
Oh.
Anyways, he was a big player at Def Jam. They loved my music, and we went off on the runnings. That's how it happened.
Mm.
With
So was
songs
it
that I wrote while I was in prison.
$500,000? Is that the deal?
$500,000. I did not get $500,000. I got a signing bonus for, I think it was 100,000, and then I would get the rest when my album came out. My album never came out, so I just had the 100,000 signing bonus, and that's what I bought my car cash with.
Right. Okay, so now cut to 2009. You're living in your car.
Same car.
What the freak happened?
So I ended up leaving the record label. So there was a showcase, and I never prepared. I didn't understand. I didn't have the right guidance. Um, I knew how to sound good on tape, but I didn't know how to sound good live because I didn't understand preparation like I do now. And there was a showcase that had like, there was Jill Scott, there was all these big names showcasing. And then I went out on stage and it wasn't that good. Chrisette Michelle, she had told me that I did really well and she loved my music, but it didn't translate. The very next day, Def Jam dropped me from the label, but I was still on DTP. And I was like, this doesn't feel right to me. I shouldn't be on the stage rapping singing with gangster rappers. I should never have put out the song Celebrity Chick. I wrote it, but I didn't want to put it out because it was not my sound. And I felt like I allowed this to happen, to go further and further and further away from who I really am. So I left and I went to go do it independent that I can make my own music the way that I wanted to make it. But I never made any money. No money ever really came in. And so it was one thing after the next, after the next. It's like, man, how long can I keep this image up? Well, I had a daughter. My mom was struggling. I wasn't making any money. That weighs hard on a man. And it's like, well, you can't take care of your kid. You can't do this. And like, you're putting on weight. Your girlfriend breaks up with you because you can't take care of your life. Your mom is dying in the hospital. So all of that was happening at the same time. And the camel that broke the straw's back is I was in the studio, and I won't name his name, with a major recording platinum artist, writing songs. I came up with a melody and I contributed to almost half of the song. And there were people that were not in the studio that night. I know exactly who was in the studio. When I called their business manager to talk about splits, they said he decided to change the song, so it's not going to be on the album. That song came out. It went number one, and it was the exact same song. It won a Grammy, but that whole time I was living in my car, and I had to watch him give credit to somebody that wasn't even in the room, wasn't even there that night, while I got nothing. And I said, F you, F music, F this whole industry. I'll go find something else to do. And then I left the industry. When I left the industry, I went dark. I was depressed. I was stressed out. I was like, man, they can take everything they wanted me away from me. They can't take away my car. Car was the only thing I had. So I started living in my car and didn't have anywhere else to go. And it was just like the pressure of trying to maintain an image, being seen on MTV, being seen in these other things was so difficult to maintain the image. And I was too prideful to get a 9 to 5 job, too prideful to go back home because I told everybody at home, if I come back home, you know I failed.
So what is that like living in your car? Because I've also seen you post a photo of a storage room that you were also kind of, I guess that was around the same time,
Yeah.
right? What was that like? Where were you going to the bathroom? Where were you parking at night?
Uh,
And
I had a membership and I had a hookup membership. You know how those are. You don't pay every major hookup. Had a hookup membership over at 24-Hour Fitness.
One in Hollywood?
Hour, yeah, on La Brea, and uh, no, it wasn't 24-Hour Fitness. It was LA Fitness, the one on La
Mm,
Brea and Hollywood.
okay.
So I had a hookup there. That's where I would shower. That's where, if I didn't have a girl's house to sleep at, which I was always going to a club so I can find a different girl whose house it was so much that I got tired of sleeping with. I was like, yo, I just want to sleep. I just want to sleep. So I would just find a way. But when gets to a point where you're numb with emotions, you stop thinking about the monotony of everything that's going around. Just going around. And I was just going down, down, down. And I'm like, how did I get myself here? Like I don't understand. I'm actually talented. There's some untalented people that are doing well. Why am I in the same spot? Why am I getting worse? Why am I hundreds of thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt from having not paid taxes for the last 10 years, but they can't get you past 7? And all that was my modeling money stuff because you had to pay your own taxes. And I never paid. And it's getting worse. My girlfriend breaks up with me. It's getting worse. Mom's dying in the hospital. It's getting worse. It's like I use the excuse because I'm black. It's getting worse because of the president. I'm getting worse. Yeah, they just they don't want to give a brother a chance. It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I tried to take my life twice, and I failed it. Maybe I should stop saying, "Can it get it?"
Mhm.
And I started asking myself different questions. And I remember it was August 2011 at 3:43 in the morning. And I was like, well, maybe it's not everybody else's fault. Maybe it's my fault because I never, ever took responsibility. And so I
Right.
was thinking, I can't change anyone else, but maybe I can change something about me. What can I change about myself? And then finally, the tears welled up inside of me. And I just said, okay, I'm tired of fighting. I don't want to fight anymore. I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. I want to be surrounded by nothing but positive people. I just want to inspire people and I want to make a bunch of money, but I want the money to represent something that I passionately believe in, that I would do for free. Just show me a sign. Just show me a sign. Just show me a sign. And I just kept saying it over, over and over, over and over. A week later, I'm at a gas station. You live in LA, it's $4.59 for 1 gallon. I have $2 to my name. I can't even get a gallon, but I'm on E. And I'm in Inglewood and I'm shooting an independent film. I'm in Inglewood. And I go and some homeless person asked me for money. I said, you have more money than me. And they said, change your mindset, change your life. I don't know what it was about those words, but it had resonance to it. There was energy behind it. It was something. It was like, And it made me think. You ever seen the movie Sixth Sense when he didn't even know he was dead and then he saw all these things play out? Same thing happened with me. I saw all these things played out. I was like, maybe my life was a lie because of how I've been thinking. So what if I do different with the same circumstance? Change your mindset, change your life. Change your mindset, change your life. So that became the new broken record, the new song in my head. Change your mindset, change your life. All of a sudden, I just started doing the opposite of everything I wouldn't normally do in areas of my life where I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with my health. So I started practicing looking at healthy people and getting around a healthy, active community. I used to go to clubs every night, trying to chase a different woman. So I started practicing reading books. So I replaced clubs, nightclubs, with books and audiobooks. And I started practicing and doing this opposite. Normally I'll take the escalators, change your mindset, change your life. So I'll take the stairs. So an object in motion stays in motion unless a stronger something, an outside force stops it. So my motion before was the way that I was living. But by training the opposite inside of me, of just doing the opposite, I staged myself outside of the way I had been living since I was a little kid. So every day since it's been 10 years, every single day when I find myself not wanting to do something, I say, change your mindset, change your life. Get up and do it. But then once you do it for long enough, it doesn't become a struggle. It actually becomes part of you. It becomes second nature. I didn't realize that health, what I thought was a new thing, was actually part of my nature. Having good health, being kind to people, reading books, not filling my mind with knowledge, my heart with knowledge, my soul with knowledge. Um, just like forgiving people, letting go of resentment. That is all to bring me back into who I really am deep down on the inside. So this was a forever evolving thing that I pivoted because of that one homeless person. People say I wouldn't listen to anybody who I wouldn't change lives with. Well, I think you might be missing a lot of message. I feel like good God will put messages inside of the least likely places that you would look. And otherwise, everybody would be rich and wealthy. But you got to learn somehow. So that is how I got on the path of enlightenment, transformation, understanding. I learned the hard way and the hard way to the hard way. And I never went to the schools and got all the terminologies and got the doctrines and got the certificates. But let me tell you something. My life certificate, I always said, I'll never go to school for 15 years so I can get the big money. I paid the price for 15 years, and that's when the big money came. That's so crazy. I still had to go to school.
So you had your own place a year later. You were a millionaire, but 4
2.5
years
years
later,
later.
2.5 years later.
Yeah. 2.5
Yeah.
years later, I was earning $115,000 a month
Mhm.
range on average.
Did anything, so when that all was happening, right? What were you feeling inside that you were not feeling inside before that homeless person said, change your mind, change your life?
Consistent joy, peace of mind, like I actually matter in the world. A sense of uh,
Purpose.
purpose, a sense of recognition. Because when I shared my story of me
Mhm.
living in my car and doing all of this and And people were like, oh my God, you had 125 videos out when you were living in your storage. I never knew that. Wow, that's crazy. I
You
got
had
my,
a YouTube channel with like inspirational content, right?
yeah. And I got my reps in. I didn't know that I was training myself to be excellent at speaking and at panels. You put me on a panel, you put me on a stage. Well, I don't care who the big name is. They'll be like, yo, who's that guy? And because I'm fairly new to the public. I only left the bubble of the company that I was in, because I was in this part of this health and wellness company for 8 years and I didn't do anything else. It was only 2 years ago that I said, you know what? I feel like this message needs to go public. I need to go
Mm.
out and share it. That's when I started doing podcasts 2.5 years ago. And I was just like podcasts, and very first podcast I ever did was Impact Theory. That was my first. A week after I said, I'm going to go public.
How did Tom find you?
They said that his show producer, some black dude, saw me on on s- little interview I did for my friend Kevin that I've known from the fashion industry. They said, we need a story like that on this platform. So the black guy had found me, showed Tom, and Tom was like, yes. But I say all of that to say I didn't know that until I shared my truth. Everything got really, I mean, like naked. Here's who I really am. And here's what I'm really going through. First message I got from somebody was, when you shared your story, I put the gun down.
Wow.
Boom. I have a new recognition. So I poured all of that same energy because they gave me feedback of, you changed my life. I was like, this feels good, but this feels different than the other forms of recognition of being seen that I've ever had. So the more and more people are like, oh my God, you inspire me so much. I loved when you shared that. I loved when you did this talk, and when the grittiness came out when you were speaking, I felt like this whole darkness just left the room when you had a standing ovation with 6,000 people. And all of that is the same little boy where somebody's, man, yo, you are so fearless when you break into those cars. It's like, man, you motivate me so much. And that was the moment I was like, I have shit. I understand, and I'm so worthy of it. And now I understand why I had to go through what it seems like 20 men go through, but in one body, so that I can relate to many different kind of people. I can relate to so many, the spiritual aspect, the freaking gangbanger aspect, the drug dealer aspect, the stripper aspect, the special need aspect, the sexual trauma aspect, the
Speech impediments.
sheet pattern. Like, and so those are the people who follow me. And they don't even share those stories until I say something about speech impediment. I was like, damn, I never really shared that with anybody, but I also had a speech impediment, because I become the permission slip for other people to realize, oh,
Right.
it's okay to be all the way me and to share all the way me.
Your mess is your message.
100%.
What was the motivation behind going up to those 2,000 strangers and asking those 3 questions? How do I love myself? How to find happiness? And how to change my life? Like, when did you do that, and why did you do that?
So I remember I was just praying. I was like, God, send me a sign. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you use me? Like, what do you, like, give me what do you need me for? Like, I'll do it. And people just kept saying, you should write a book. You should write a book. You should write a book. And usually when things come in multitudes like that, and it keeps coming, it's because I probably ignored the signs early on. But when they keep coming like that, it's because something's trying to get my attention. So finally, I decided to write a book called Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life. I didn't know how. I didn't know a publisher. I didn't know anything. And, while I was in the process, and, it was a 5-year process to write my book, but it didn't take me 5 years to write it. It was 5 years because I was just like, oh, like, I'm trying to write the perfect book. To say I'm a follower of Christ, but my best friend's Jewish and Muslim friends, and I have gay friends, and I have all these. And how do I write a book fits everybody? That was where the difficulty was. Instead of just writing my book for my own story, instead of trying to please people. So I went through that whole process, but in that process, I just decided to ask. So if you can ask the universe 3 questions regarding change, and you could get the answer, what would it be? So at every event I ever went to, I would just hand out cards. I still have them right now. I have them like, it's funny. I just found this box, all my index cards. It has all these questions. Well, the questions that got asked the most, I felt like I could answer or support the statistic of the world's questions. So whichever question was asked the most, what's my purpose? How do I find love? You know what I'm saying? That's a question that millions of more people are asking, if that's the commonality of a question. So when it came to that, it became the questions that I answered inside of my book because the people asked it. So that was an everyday people's guide to understanding the questions that you typically ask every day.
Mm. And what is the Youth Foundation?
It was, I'll tell you. So I have the Change Your Mindset Youth Foundation. And when I created it, it's because someone else suggested it.
Mhm.
So it's something that went on the back burner because it's not something that I resonated with right then in the moment. But it's somebody said, oh, it's time to do a foundation now. So I went to do a foundation now, but it just didn't resonate with me now. It's kind of like when somebody's like, okay, hey, let's go to church. Well, I don't want to go to church right now, but I did it because I was like, I don't want God to be mad at me, so I'm going to go. So it's on the back burner for right now because there's some things that I am taking care of regarding men, regarding my own life, my family, my new daughter, my daughter that's almost 20 years old. And, but the Change Your Mindset Youth Foundation is a foundation that will support underprivileged youth that came from similar environments that I had. There'll be books and apps and, and opportunities to connect, almost like a Big Brother type program with with the the youth who need a certain level of education because they don't get access to it.
Hey, really quickly, if you like this content or if you don't like it, let me know down in the comments because your likes and comments are going to help me learn what you want more of. And then that way, I can keep bringing you the good stuff. All right. Thanks so much for your feedback and back to the show.
Your name, Garrain, where is that from?
Um, well, my mom's name is Sherian.
Mm.
And she wanted something close to that. Her friend said, how about the name Garrett? And she really liked it. And so, but that's not the story I grew up with. I had heard another story that I think my brother lied to me. So I'm just finding this out as of like a year ago. Like my brother, when I grew up, he used to, man, he used to just sabotage me. I think he was just so jealous of the attention I got. But he told me that my name was originally supposed to be Garrain. It's named after my mom, Sherian and Garrain, but the doctor misspelled my name. And so we didn't have the money to actually like correct it. So it was just Garrain. So I went my whole life thinking that I was a mistake.
Mm.
So I found out that some of the greatest inventions in the world came from mistakes. So I like kind of rewrote that, but then I just found out, I think my wife asked my mom, she had a completely different story, but my mother never told me that story. I just went off my brother's story.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was a metaphor for thinking that you were a mistake.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he never
Awesome.
let me hear the last of it. He told me I was adopted, I was a mistake, all these things.
So, how much older is your brother than you?
4 years older than me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have 3 brothers. We're 5 years apart, so I completely get that dynamic, and I would have
Yeah.
probably done something similar to my youngest brother, because I used to tease him and pick on him all the time.
Wow.
All right, so you and your brother and your mom and your dad were all as a young child,
Yes.
um, you all were all in Houston, right?
Yes.
In the
Mhm.
third ward. What are the traits of the third ward for those people who aren't familiar
Well,
with that area of Houston?
now it's like gentrified. So it's like way different, but third ward was the hoodest of the hood where killings happen all the time and no one ever found out. I was only born there, but I don't remember there.
Mm,
The only part I remember is when my dad moved back there after my mom separated and I would go and visit him, but I never
mhm,
played outside.
mm,
So my brother remembers more than I do that it was a very, very, very one of the roughest neighborhoods in Houston.
mm,
Uh, Hood, drugs, killings, people arrested all the time, but that was the norm, you know. And my dad was murdered in that same neighborhood, and nothing ever happened. So it was, but that was normal.
mm. Wow. And when you were 4 years old, some guy put you in a dryer or something like
Yeah. So
this?
that's when I was in we were in Sharpstown, so we were in Bel Air. Bel Air, it's a neighborhood in Houston, so it was in Houston, and I remember, and I won't like I remember so clear. I went downstairs, and there's the community washer and dryer, and I remember I used to love Disneyland so much. And so I just like, wow, Disneyland, you know what you see on TV. Oh my God, it's Disney. And an adult, like a full grown man, asked me if I wanted to go to Disneyland. And I remember just saying, yeah, I want to go to Disneyland. He said, well, if you get in that dryer, you'll go to Disneyland. And I remember saying to myself, that doesn't make sense to me. But we're taught to listen to our
Sure.
elders and you know what I'm saying? That was like this is what we're taught. And so I just remember saying this doesn't make sense, but I really want to go to Disneyland really bad. So he lifts up a grown man lifts up a child, a 4-year-old, puts him in the dryer, closes the dryer, turns it on. And I remember when that door closed, I instantly, as soon as it turned on, I can instantly feel the heat. And I'm just tumbling around and tumbling around and tumbling around and screaming and crying. And a lady ran out of her apartment building and opened up the dryer because she saw the whole thing happen. She had no clothes on, and she's the one that saved my life. But in that moment, I lost trust of people that were older than me. I didn't care about Disneyland when all these other kids were talking about Disneyland, but I didn't realize this was the reason why I never got excited about Disneyland until like 6 years ago. But no Disneyland for me. Didn't care for Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck. Um, didn't trust people who were older than me. Didn't trust, period, and didn't trust myself because I took a risk, and that risk almost killed me. So in my mind, taking a risk is associated with I'm about to die.
Hmm. I have a lot of questions about that, but there's so many moments like this in your life.
So
We
many.
can't go too deep into any one of them. But did you get seriously hurt from that, or you just kind of?
Oh, I had burns and boils literally all over my body.
Wow.
Like these big old, like you get a burn or
Hmm.
something, or if you ever been cooking with hot skillet grease and that grease pops out,
Hmm.
the bacon or the fried bologna sandwich, and then pops
Hmm.
out.
Hmm.
Um, I had bubbles and
I think
burning.
only Black people would get that reference of
Yeah,
fried
I was
bologna
just about to say,
sandwich.
for those of you who understand the fried bologna sandwich,
And that pop of the grease on your skin.
yeah, I know some people, some of your listeners are like, I don't think I can relate.
Right. What is bologna? So that must have been one of your earliest memories because you're
Yeah.
4.
So
Did your mom get upset with you because of that
I don't,
experience?
the only thing I remember around that is my brother who was 8.
Hmm.
But my brother was really big. My brother started puberty in the 5th grade. So he
Yeah.
was really big and really tall, and he could fight. He went to go find the dude. I think the dude was like 18 years old, and
Yeah.
my brother beat him up.
No way.
I remember it so clearly. And my brother did something to him. He hit him with a stick, and he did some things. Maybe the guy didn't fight back. I just remember the dude getting beat up by my brother because of me.
Right.
That's the only thing I
So you
remember.
pointed the guy out because he was like chilling out in the
No,
playground or
no,
something.
the lady who saw
Oh,
me
got it.
told my family.
And you know what? I bet you that guy had mental problems. I mean, he obviously had mental problems, but I bet you he probably, if this was like the hood, he probably had some undiagnosed autism, something
So,
that caused him to
well,
do
so
that.
that Sharpstown wasn't so much the hood. I was born in the hood. This one was more of, there was more white people. There was Hispanics. It was more variety of people.
Mm.
And it was, we moved away from that. We moved away from what people would call the ghetto.
Right. Right. Okay. So parents separated. You and your brother go to the same parent, or you get to
So,
choose?
yeah, so this was even wild. There's so much stuff to story. Sure. This is the same age, 4 years old.
Mhm.
And I remember my mom and dad used to play it all the time. And my mom told me at 4, pick which parent you want to go with, me or your dad, because they were separating. And I remember saying, I don't want to choose. Now I'm going to turn this into a whole lesson, but I remember saying, I don't want to choose. And I remember there as being like, should we have 30 minutes left to get your stuff together and everything? And I'm a little kid. And I don't, there was the feeling of dread. I don't want to choose. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. At the last minute, finally, I was like, I want to go with dad. I finally chose. And so I remember getting into the car, driving away. My brother chose my mom. And I'm watching, when you drive away and the people get small because you're getting further and further, something just like impacted my spirit. What I now know is my intuition. I didn't know back then, but it said, go with your mom, go with your mom. And I said, stop the car. I want to go with mom. I want to go with mom. I want to go with mom. So my dad drove back. And I remember running up to my brother and my mom and hugging them. And then my dad drives off. I never would have known that 8 years later that my father would have been murdered in the same neighborhood that I was supposed to live in.
Mm.
However, here's what happened. Every argument after that, my parents, they were separated, but anytime they were in a room, they were arguing. I kept saying it's my fault. And I thought it was my fault because I chose my mom instead of my dad. So I blamed myself for every argument. And when my father was murdered, guess who I blamed for it?
You, because you weren't there.
Because I wasn't there.
Mhm.
And I've been living my whole life. It was like, why do I procrastinate? Why am I often late? Why do I feel like I can get anywhere? In anywhere in the city in 30 minutes, even if it's 2 hours away. And why do I always wait till the last minute? I don't know. Finally, I discovered, oh my God, that little boy has been playing the same sequence. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Stall, stall, stall. The feeling of dread and make decisions at the last minute. That's been the story of my life, my whole life, until I realized where it started.
Wow. Okay, so all this drama is happening in the background. What was your favorite toy or activity back in those years, those early years? You were 8, 9, 10 years old.
So 8, 9, 10. My favorite activity is running. I
Mhm.
always loved running. There was a sense of freedom. Um, I would always have like really happy thoughts. It's like flying to Peter Pan, but I loved running. And my mom said, I always knew you were going to be a runner because it normally takes babies 11 and a half months to start walking. She said you were full blown running at 6.5, almost 7 months. Like full blown. She said it was so odd because you were so tiny and you had these little bow leggeds, but you would just run everywhere.
So when you say running as a 10-year-old, what are we talking about? Because, people aren't actually running like they run these days. There's not a lot of jogging happening, especially,
No, I was on a
urban
track
areas.
team. I was on a summer league AAU track team when I was 8, 7, 8, 9, 10. I ran with some of the fastest kids in the world. A lot of them went on to win Olympics, gold medal Olympics. And when I was 9, I set a record for the mile in my
Oh, wow.
elementary for a 6-minute mile, and the record's still there. So when I say
Wow.
I was an avid runner, competition, running against people all over the country and making it to nationals, winning gold medals and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, I remember hating running. I would be cramping up. I remember in junior high school, we had to run like cross country. They called it cross country. I don't know why they called it that, but
Yeah.
because I wasn't into it at all. But that's fascinating that you were actually that was your favorite thing to do was to run.
Still is.
Okay, so talk about your near death experience at 10 years old.
Which one?
The one where you almost drowned. Which
Okay.
one?
I'm telling you that there's just so many that when I go back. So 10. Um, Actually, I believe I was in the 7th grade. I was either 7 years old or I was in the 7th grade. It's one of those. But me and Derek Duncan and a couple of other neighborhood boys were playing baseball in a cul-de-sac. I had been hearing about kids in the neighborhood being killed by these people that were drowning them in the bayou. When you hear these things of like folklore things, you don't think that they'll ever happen to you.
No.
So I was playing baseball and I saw these kids that I knew because they were my older cousin's friends. I knew of them because I've seen them with my older cousin. And they were like, oh, there's big trout in the bayou. And in my head, I was just like, all right, I want to go fishing. Derek Duncan says, don't go. Like everybody was like, why are you leaving? Don't go. And I was like, I want to go catch these fish. So I go and follow these 3 grown men. And then there's these little tunnels. So you have this dark bayou water and these 3 tunnels that are sucking the current in. And then they suck it all the way a street. So anything that goes inside of there doesn't last because it's going underwater in current until it gets sucked out on the other side of the street. So I don't think anything of it. I'm looking for trout. And I was like, I don't see any trout. He's like, you got to look closer. And I'm looking closer and I don't even see it. And he's like, you got to look closer. And his voice changed. And you're seeing that thing on YouTube. It was like, it was at this moment he knew
Mhm.
it up.
Mhm.
In that moment when he said, look closer, something told me these are the guys that's been drowning those kids. But by that time, I was already in the water. Current
Mm.
sucked me in. And by that time, I couldn't swim at all. So I'm sitting there, oh my God. And I'm getting flipped because of the current in the whirlpools. And I'm literally getting sucked into this tunnel. And I just said, there, it was done. Like I gave up. I legit dropped my hand. You can't see in the water. Drop my hand. Here's the tunnel right here. I'm coming this way. My hand's outside the tunnel going like this. I drop my hand and I'm underwater being sucked into the tunnel. Out of nowhere, a hand goes, boom, grabs this, pulls me up just enough so that I can grab the side. And then I grabbed the side of the tunnel and I pulled myself up. When I looked up, I saw nobody. That was one of the scariest times in my life.
And still no explanation. Your homies didn't come and try to like find you.
Still no explanation. I called out the people who it was. There was no proof. It was all these different things and nothing ever happened. And I'm sure in retrospect, something really did happen to those guys.
Right.
Nothing ever happened to my knowledge being a little kid. I just knew that I'm not going to trust. I'm not going to trust when somebody says, hey, come do this. Hey, come do that. So another lack of trust when it comes to older people.
Mm. Okay. So father is murdered at 12, a couple years later, a few years later.
Yep.
What is the conversation like in your household with your mom, with your brother? Like, was she giving you guys any sort of like life philosophy? Was she repeating anything over and over? You got to work hard or,
Nah,
or,
my mom was the number one supporter. She supported every sport that I did, but there wasn't any philosophy talk around the house. If anybody ever gave me philosophy, it was actually my dad. And it was when I was 5 years old. He would always tell me, don't ever let anybody tell you can't do something. If you love it, then you do it. If it makes you happy, then you do it. And I just always remember that. I'm like, this doesn't make me happy. Why am I doing it? So that was the one thing that I just kind of swirled around in my mind to always use because it works. Something makes me happy when I love it. And then I do what makes me happy that I love, that brings joy to me. It always works.
So then what led you to start breaking into houses and cars?
So this is a whole nother thing. So we're gonna have to take it back into time.
Okay.
Because I've always been a hustler. And I remember I was 5 and I asked my mom for a pair of Jordans to buy me a pair of Jordans. She was like, expensive as those shoes are. She was like, when you can make your own money, you can buy whatever you want. She didn't say how. There was no discipline in that way. It's not how to make the money. When you can make your own money, you can buy whatever you want. So I did things that was with an integrity. Like I'd wash cars, I would mow lawns, I would do all these things, but I would also break into cars, steal things, and whatever. I would do whatever I had to do to make money. Whenever I make my own money, do what you want. So take that timestamp of somebody who's been hustling since he was 5. My mother was a hustler. She didn't have the money. She always found a way to make money. So it was like, I'd literally been hustling to get what I wanted since I was 5. However I needed to. Fast forward, me 22 years old and somebody give me the opportunity to make some money driving a car from one border over a ferry to the next border from the UK to Rotterdam. Don't ask no questions. You drive this car, you make 4,000 pounds. And 1 pound at that time in 2001 was worth $2.3. That's $8,000 cash every time I drove. I did that route 7 to 8 times over a 2-3 month period. I've never seen fast cash like that. And I'd always been fearless, always. So driving a car, yeah, okay, boom, 8,000, 8,000, 8,000. So imagine 3 month period, 8,000, 8,000, 8,000, 8,000, 8,000. But on the seventh time, they had me fly into France, and everything about it felt wrong. And when I got to the border, I used to use my modeling magazines. I was on the cover of a magazine. People were like, why were you doing all of this when you were modeling? I was like, models don't make that much money like the supermodels do. And once you book a job, you got to wait 3-4 months till you get a check. So I didn't have a lot of money coming in, but this fast cash, I can do this easy, and I can have this as my cover up. So I ended up getting caught, and they sentenced me to 12 years in the prison. And I got out in 2.5.
Right. But you also got arrested at 14, right?
Oh, is that the one you're talking about? So
Yeah,
juvenile.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
You're
juvenile
talking
thing
about
for
prison.
breaking into
Yeah.
breaking into cars and
Yeah.
houses and stuff.
Yeah. So it's so funny. I've always been a leader or someone who can influence people.
Mhm.
Somebody had introduced me to opening up car doors, and I never really had to break the window, because what we call it, we go to the white neighborhood, which is in my mind, that was the neighborhood where all the rich white people live. They would
Mhm.
never lock their car doors. So we would go there, just open it up and take whatever was valuable and then sell it. So I did that with a guy one night and fell in love with it. I have a very addictive personality, and I just kept doing it. And I was like, hey, you want to do cars? You want to come do cars? And then it was me and 12 other dudes that were doing these cars and taking whatever was valuable, splitting it up sometimes. And I just did that for years. But whenever I got caught, I never lied. I would always say, yes, I did do it. Yes, I broke into 62 cars in one night. Yes, it was me, but I never told on anyone else. So that happened to be the time when I got caught. I was on probation. But even while I was on probation, I still kept doing it. So because I got caught breaking into cars while I was on probation, that's when I went to juvenile.
So were you a sociopath, or what was your relationship with, like, you didn't think?
I didn't know what that was when I was
Right. But I'm just saying, like, looking back now, did you just you made no connection between this is someone's stuff or you just thought this is all mine. This is all my stuff. I just haven't gotten it yet.
I didn't think about any of that. What I actually craved and still do
Mhm.
was recognition. There was a lot of
Mm.
significance in that. Because when I do something fearless, they're like, oh man, you're like fearless and you would do this and great job and stuff. Like, if you look at any of my successes or anything, anywhere where there's the most recognition, you will see me excel. I've been like that since I was a kid. I just didn't know where to point that energy until I got older. So
Mhm.
running around, well, I wasn't with the gang, but I ran around with gang members and did a lot of stuff that they did. And there was lots of recognition in there. Breaking cars, there was lots of recognition. I was sleeping with a lot of women. They're like, oh man, you get all the girls. There was lots of recognition. So it was never the stuff or the repercussions of it. It was the fact that somebody saw me, because I didn't feel like I was seen at home.
Mm.
When I connect the dots looking backwards.
Right. And when you were in juvie, one of the, I guess, correction officers handed you something. You asked him how you could get out of
Yeah.
that situation.
So, I was in there, and I remember everybody saying, because I didn't start puberty until I graduated high school. So I was little for a very long time. So at that age, when I was 15, I probably had a size 6 shoe. I was about 5'1". I was very tiny. And so when I was in juvenile, everybody was like, why are you here? You're too good to be like, what are you doing here? Nobody could believe why I was so small and in juvenile. And I remember I was supposed to go to TYC, which is a prison for teenagers.
Mm.
And that was about 6 hours away from my mom. Mind you, I had never been away from my mom. So me being in juvenile was the longest I'd ever been away, but she could visit. And I was supposed to go to juvenile. And because I had 62 counts, anytime you break into a car, it's considered a felony. I admitted to all 62. So it was considered having 62 felonies. And so they were trying me as an adult, 15, and I was 5'1" and a little kid. So here's what was supposed to happen. I go to juvenile, then I go to prison for teenagers, then they try me as an adult at 16. I remember dreading going to TYC. And I was in line and we weren't supposed to get out of line. But I remember seeing this man. He had gold trimmed glasses, khakis on. He had a little bit darker skin than me. He was bald and in a white button down shirt. Something told me to go ask him, how can I get out? And I wasn't supposed to get out of line. I was like, excuse me, how can I get out of here? First thing he said is, do you know the Lord's Prayer? I was like, no, what is that? He pulls out this little orange Bible and he said, when you learn the Lord's Prayer, that's when you'll get out.
Mm.
And I remember saying, that was the stupidest thing ever. And I took that little orange Bible and it was literally in my cell for the longest time. A week before I was in there for 6.5 months. It was the week before I was supposed to get out. And I was like, man, let me see what's in this. Let me learn this stupid Lord's Prayer. And I just started, Our Father, Lord in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. I did that over and over and over and over and over. Sometimes people quote things from memory, but it was almost as if just saying those words was doing something internally inside of me and having me walk into mastery, but I was unaware of what was happening. I remember not having to remember it. And it just felt like it was a part of me. And I stood up and I would just say it every single day. And then I just said it and I was just like, that felt different. As soon as I finished, I felt that there was a knock on the door. Mind you, it's a week before I leave off for prison for teenagers, TYC. Soon as I finished the Lord's Prayer, when I felt it in my body, knock, 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 knock. Jones, today's your lucky day. You're getting out. I remember looking at the Lord's Bible and I'm like,
Wow.
and ever since then, that was the defining thing that supported me in my relationship with, I'm a follower of Christ, my relationship with God, and I wavered so much, but every single time I go back to the Lord's Prayer, and I become it. I read the book until the book starts reading me. The most magical miracle things happen with grace and ease. And it started when I was that little kid, and I've seen so many instances of me being connected to my spirit, the spiritual aspect, and abundance follows, or miracles that don't make sense according to how human brains think.
What was the legal loophole that the universe used to get you out of that place?
Nobody knows.
Wow.
Nobody knows. Jones, you're getting out.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was just like a Jones, you're getting out. Today's your lucky day.
So you go back to school now. You're becoming more focused, but you're still, I guess, breaking into stuff and stripping and this kind of thing a little bit.
I didn't start that until I got to
You're in high school, right?
in 11th grade. So
Yeah.
that one was more freshman, 14, 15. And then, cause see, I didn't know that what I was feeding my mind
Hmm.
was causing me to be a different person. I just thought I was lucky. I was like, whoa. I was like, wow, I'm so lucky. I didn't know your thoughts create things and you can create your reality, whatever. 'Cause I didn't really have mentors like that. So I was just so clueless. You can't change what you're not aware of. So after a while, I just gave up. I stopped doing things. And I remember my probation officer, his name is something Darnell, Bobby Darnell or Bobby something. He looked at me. He's like, there comes a time where you hit a fork in the road. You can either stop, do nothing, you can make a left, or you can make a right. When you make a left, you change your life. You make a right, you go further. You go further in, and you'll end up dead or in prison for life. And he said, you're heading down the path on the right, and you've already passed the point where you can do anything about it.
Mm.
He told me this. I remember him saying, I wish I could meet him and say, bro, I took it. So, but that's ultimately what took place. And then high school happened, and I went to another school and I just got bored. I got really bored. And every time when I get bored, I start thinking of different things that I can do for me not to be bored.
I've been watching from the sidelines. Well, I've been following you since you and I met in Venice that one night. And man, I was, you lived in LA, you had this really beautiful house. You had a mural of the guy pulling you out of the water when you
That
were,
was Black Jesus.
a kid, Black Jesus.
Mm.
And you would oftentimes post stories uh, at your track practice, and you would say things like, if you're waking up and watching this, that means God is still working on you, and just really inspirational stuff. You have affirmations at your house before you walk in, and now I've seen that you and Preston and Stefan you guys started working out together in Austin because you all live in Austin. So just talk about the genesis of this men's initiative that you all are starting to create. Because what's interesting about it is it's not something that I don't think you started with this intent in mind. It's
No,
just
not at
about
all.
working out,
Yeah.
and it turned into this thing.
Well, one, I've never had men relationships just because of the unhealthy, like my dad and my brother. Me and my brother are really good now, but things that I saw them do to women and thing in the ways that they were, I was just like, I hate men. And I didn't realize when I said I hate men, I was also saying I hate myself. And so I took more of the feminine qualities. Like I was raised by all women, and I was still rough around the edges because I was always in the streets, but I still understood. I loved flowing, spontaneity, the arts, dancing and singing. And but I was still like a little pit bull, but I was more in the feminine aspect. And I never had men relationships, real, true men, brotherhood relationships. Then I moved to Austin. And all of a sudden, these men were like inviting me to things. And I remember telling my wife, I don't know, it's weird. It's like all different kind of men. They're just like inviting me to things, inviting me to lunch, inviting me. And I was like, and I wasn't used to that because I'd never had that.
Mhm.
And, I've known Preston for 20 years, but we were never really close. I just known him. He's a fashion guy, and he was doing a bunch of stuff that I wanted to do, and I didn't know how to get into the industry. So I like hated on him for a while. I've also known his wife separately, Alexi, for 20 years as well. She's one of the people who used to write me while I was in prison, you know.
Wow.
And so, I've known both of them separately for a very long time. And one day he invited me to a garage workout with Stefanos, who I did not know. And we just kept working out. And I was like, this is like really cool. This is like right when we moved here. We kept working out. We were inviting more men. And I was like, man, it's like, I feel like when I was like a little kid, I used to ride bikes with my little homies in the neighborhood and everything. And we used to like wrestle and talk trash and everything. And then we just kept doing it. And then we outgrew Stephanos's garage. And then we went over to my boy Cal's house. Cal Callahan is big time investor. And he had just like CrossFit set up called the bunker in the back. And then we just kept working out and we were meeting all kind of people. Well, I happen to love motivating people. So instead of just the workout, at the end, I would close it with like the hoorah and motivating people. And then one guy walked up to me. He's like, man, you have no idea how much you changed my life. Notice the trend in a form of recognition. He's like, man, my relationship with my wife is better ever since I've been coming, and largely because of the stuff that you say after the workout. So I just kept doing it. And more guys were coming, more people were coming. And from there, from that aspect of people coming, we outgrew that
Cal's house.
yeah, Cal's house. He went out of town for 3 months, so we didn't have a place to go. So then we went to On It Primal Gym, which is a huge, one of the best gyms. Stop calling me. Sorry about that.
But
They tried to call me.
you went to On It.
Yeah, went to On It Primal Gym, and then we outgrew that place. So, we're gonna go to a park. And then Preston called me. He was like, hey, man, I got this idea. He's like, I tried to do this before, but I tried to do it by myself. And I want to start a brotherhood, something that's like scalable, starting with the workouts that have membership, that have retreats, that have trauma work, shadow work, and everything. But I know I can't do it alone. And I love the way you show up in the world. And, in the first meeting I went to, I said, why me? You say you love the way you show up in the world. I was like, all of these people, they're so powerful people. Why me? He said, because I watched you in your last company. I watched you take a group from 0 to 475 people on a beach working out, playing dodgeball. And I saw you create a movement that turned into thousands of people. There's not many people like you. And I'm really good at what I do, but I don't do it in that way. And so he said, that's why you, because no one, he said some like cat in the hat quote. He was like, no one can be more youer than you. I was like, oh, I'm in, bro. I used to you quoting cat in the hat. And it was said with Stephanos, he is like really big in the men's work. I never did men's work, but I did transformation work. So I just understand people, period. But same with Stephanos. And we all just formed together. We just kept meeting and kept meeting and kept meeting. And then we formed a leadership group of like 16 other guys that were the most passionate at the workouts. And they happen to be gifted in so many different things. But they're so gifted that if none of us were a part of it, they could run a coalition by themselves. So it's not only us, it's 16 other people that are so gifted, and we happen to work together because we love the mission. So it just kept turning into things over and over and over. And all we're doing is providing the space for the spillover that authentically keeps happening. So every man is who we are. And me and Stephanos and Preston, we're the co-founders of Empowered Brotherhood. That's capital M, poweredbrotherhood.com. You go on there, but you got top level coaches. Typically it's like one and all the helpers. You don't have grade A master class teachers all working together in one space. So the elements and the elevation of what these men are getting, creating a new identity of how man sees himself and how the world sees man, is our mission to truly help men. So that's what it's about. And that's how it came about. I wasn't seeking it, but it sought us, and I answered, and we answered to the calling.
So beautiful. And I think that's just it's a testament to, you know, because when I see you specifically in that space, it's so clear that is a part of your purpose, right? But it's not something you went to Austin to seek out. You may not have even put it on a list of things you ever wanted to aspire to achieve in your life, but you just kept taking steps. And, we could argue obviously that everything in your life has been leading you to this moment. And I think you're just getting started, man. I think we're just seeing the beginning of what's to
We
come.
are seeing all the time. I feel like God puts the greatest blessings in the areas where we're least likely to look. Never ventured into men's work.
Mm-hmm. You just like working out and you like pushing yourself in a workout. So,
love pushing
I'll come
myself, and
by.
then all of a sudden, here I am as like the leader of this. I was like, oh, and
Yeah.
here it is. People are moving from different countries, from
To be
different
there.
cities to be in that energy. They were like, there's nothing, because lots of people that got men's work, they don't have that workout piece, that primal piece, that they don't have the whole spectrum. And so people are like, I left this to come here because I need this. And now I realize in my own marriage, I didn't know how much I needed until I'm in it, because I'm trying to make my wife all of the things that the brothers, they meet those needs. She can't be all the things. So this is how everything happened.
You guys got me damn near wanting to move to Austin.
Bro, I would. Where are you?
I'm in Mexico City, but I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday about if I had to go back to the States, where would I go? I was like, probably Austin, probably go to Austin. And I can't lie. It's because of all these, it's all the stuff I'm seeing online, man, with you guys doing such great work. And I've never been a part of a men's initiative as big as the one as you guys have created out there. And so it's exciting to watch.
And Austin Light.
I know I'm going to come and at least visit and just try to drop in on some of those sessions. That looks amazing.
Every single person that has come to visit
stays.
Was like, it makes no sense for me to go back to where I was.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, look, I want to wrap this up. And the way I typically do that is I loop back around to your childhood favorite activity, which for you obviously was running. And you mentioned freedom. You felt a lot of freedom in running.
Yeah.
And I've also heard you in other interviews talk about the things that you were closest to as a child usually are what you are aligned with as your purpose and your path. And obviously you help people find freedom. I think the mistake that we sometimes make is we think about, as soon as I become financially free, all my problems will be resolved. And your whole thing is, no, become free within, find that freedom within yourself. And then all the resources you need for whatever you're doing in life you'll attract to yourself.
Yeah, because when you free up that space, the resources fill in those gaps.
That's right.
You take the old beat up car out of the garage, you can actually put another car in. Create the space to make room for your blessings.
So just want to acknowledge you for not killing yourself those 2 times. Those are the only times I'm happy you failed.
Yeah.
And for continuing to show up and for continuing to share the more embarrassing, darker parts of your story with the world in an effort to help those of us, because we all have them, to help those of us feel like we can relate to your story, and that there is hope. There's hope, and we can't let anybody take that away from us. As Andy Dufresne says in that Shawshank Redemption movie that you saw in prison that time.
Yeah,
So,
bro.
so thank you very much, man, for coming on here and sharing your story.
If you like that video, you're going to love the next one. Click this thumbnail right here, and I'll see you over there.